I was like, that's fine. I think we have too much going on. I'll just sub for the teams.
Yeah, I know we're gonna play. We're late though this year. Kevin didn't get time, so I'll start until like middle of June.
I think we were gonna reshield, so I was like, back.
Oh, where do I have to point this?
Should be right at the computer.
It's
If
not
you're
working
clicked
here.
in, you gotta click into it on the thing though. Like just click on the screen that the presentation is on. Now it should work.
Try that?
There we go.
You just have to be clicked into the presentation.
Computer. Are we ready to go? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call a regular meeting of April 19th of Council to order. There's no public hearing scheduled for today. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, members of council, administration has no deletions or additions.
Anything from council? Councillor Butcher?
To accept the agenda as presented, your worship.
I can't see Dwayne, so if you can give us a verbal, all in favor to the motion?
In favor.
Any opposition? None. Okay, carried. All right. Delegations. So Tanner's here from MNP Auditors, and you want to enlighten us as to how the audit went.
I will for sure. I think Benji's actually gonna start it.
Benji's, yeah, Zoom.
Himself. He's
Benji's on Zoom?
Yeah, he's on Zoom. So
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just not in person. Sorry about that.
No problem, Benji. Welcome. You guys have the floor however you want to present.
Perfect. Well, I'll just quickly get started here. Thanks for having us. I do apologize for not being there in person. That was the plan, but something changed last week. I think the other municipality that I was supposed to present to yesterday forgot it was Easter Monday, and then last minute changed it to tonight. So I've got another one of these right after. So I couldn't make the drive out, but looking out my window here, I'm not too sad about that. Got Tanner there, so hopefully, he's going to go through everything. He's got this PowerPoint in front of you here on the screen. I hope you can see. And the plan is just like usual, go through kind of our audit findings as well as the financial statements themselves. So, I'm going to be kind of in the background here and able to answer any questions, but I'm just going to turn it over to Tanner to run you guys through the PowerPoint.
perfect. Thanks, Benji. So I am Tanner Bowers. I'm a senior manager with MNP. This is my 5th year with the town of Redwater, managing the audit. So lots of little bit of experience with the town. So there's just some nice pictures of Benji and myself for everyone to look at.
I like the little old pictures.
Yeah, they're a little more gray maybe than picture. Let's see. So yeah, like Benji said, we're gonna go over our audit objective and responsibilities of MNP, of management, of yourselves as council as well, our audit strategy and areas of emphasis, the status of the audit, our audit findings, any adjusted and unadjusted differences, our auditor independence, and then we'll go through the financial results as well. Right. So obviously our audit objective is to report on the fair presentation of the financial statements prepared in accordance with Canadian Public Accounting Standards. So administration, their responsibility is to prepare the statements under the correct standard, being Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. Their job is that they are responsible for the numbers that go into the financial statements, and they're also responsible for establishing internal controls and protecting the town's assets. Council is responsible for reviewing and approving the financial statements as well as general oversight of the town and management. And MNP, our responsibility is very simple, and that is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. Just moving into our audit strategy. So I was here back in January to present our audit service plan. So the only change from that is that we increased materiality from $300,000 to $330,000 for the year ended December 31st, 2021. So that means our final materiality is $330,000. That is just based on a percentage of overall revenue. So based on the final trial balance that was provided to us from management, it did increase a bit there. So that's based on just 4% of revenue, which is consistent with our internal methodology. COVID-19, everybody's favorite topic. We all like to talk about that. So overall, our impact we'll touch on a little bit later, but no significant risk related to the town in regards to that.
Stuck again. It's not working.
Oh, there it is. There we go. So some of our areas of audit emphasis, so tangible capital assets. So there's a risk that contributed roadways, pipelines, sewers, etc. could be misrecorded as there are no cash transactions, so that's contributed tangible capital assets of the town. These balances are typically large in nature. We will see that when we go through the financial statements for 2021. So in order to mitigate that risk, we're going to trace transactions to final acquisition certificates and discuss that with the town's development staff. In addition, we're going to trace additions of tangible capital assets to supporting documentation and recalculate amortization of those assets as well. And we also are going to review items that were expensed during the year to determine that they were properly classified as expenses and shouldn't have been capitalized. So we performed those procedures and we didn't identify any significant issues. Deferred revenue and government transfer, so revenue recognition could be manipulated to manipulate the surplus. We agreed funding received to agreements and other backup available. We also tested expenses applicable to the deferred revenue at the highest risk factor and ensured that they are eligible. And again, no significant issues noted in that area as well. And salaries and wages, so there may be staff over or underpaid. So we did trace a sample of transactions from the financial records and ensured that employees were being paid appropriately. And again, no significant issues noted there either. So our status of the audit. So we have completed our audit and upon approval of the financial statements are prepared to sign our audit report. Our report will provide an unqualified opinion to the mayor and council of the town. So that's the gold standard. That's what we want to see. So that's a clean audit opinion. So kudos to management on achieving that for this year and every other year previous that we've been involved as well. So good to see there. And we also would like to express our appreciation for the excellent cooperation that we received from administration and all the staff at the town as well during our audit process. So adjusted differences. So we do propose some adjusting journal entries, and a full listing of those is available upon request. In terms of unadjusted differences, so items that we've identified as potentially under or overstated during the year that have not been adjusted. It's just a potential understatement of the allowance for doubtful accounts based on our assessment of it. So that has an impact of $37,707. So you compare that against the $330,000 materiality. So obviously, plenty of room left there, and we can issue a clean audit opinion in that regard. COVID-19, so we do need to consider events up to the date of approval of the financial statements in regards to COVID-19, but also just in relation to the overall operations of the town as well, and include a potential disclosure in the financial statement. So this is maybe a good place to stop and ask council and management if you are aware of any subsequent events that may need to come to the attention of us as the audit team. So that's from January 1st, 2022 to today. Perfect. That's what we like to hear.
Councilor Spicer has any.
Sorry, Dwayne, we can't see you, so did you have anything?
Yeah, nothing on my part.
Tanner, do you want questions as we come across them, or?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You feel free to stop me at any point. Yeah, definitely. We actually have an administrative slide on the next one here that kind of says just feel free to stop me during any of this. But yeah, definitely. So a very important part of our audit is that we are independent of the town, and that is important to issue an audit opinion. So we do confirm that we are independent of the town, and our letter discussing our independence has been provided to management under separate cover. Here's this administration side. So ask any questions at any time. If we cannot answer directly, we will add to a list and address either later or after the presentation. So I'm going to jump right in here to the financial statement. So we're starting with the statement of operations with revenue. So just a couple comparison items. So you can see up on screen there, you've got your first column there being the budget, and then you have 2021 actuals, and then you also have the 2020 comparative as well. So overall, you can see that there is an increase in revenue compared to the prior year, but overall, there's it's fairly consistent with budget, up about about 270,000. Some of the significant line items through there, so property taxes are consistent with budget as well as the prior year, only about $1,000 change from 2020. The user fees and sales of goods, the $1.8 million in revenue this year is within 3% of budget and also an increase over the prior year. So that's there's no really significant items to note in that area of big swings or anything like that. Where we do see a big swing actually is in gas sales. So it's actually 13% over budget. Also, pretty significant increase over the prior year. That's primarily related to gas price increases as well as volume increases. There's a pretty big cold snap in December there, so volume is up in that area, and that is a primary reason for the increase in revenue as well. We'll see that on the expense side as well, that expenses have risen too. Government transfers for operations, $608,000 was 27% over budget. This is primarily due to the most grant for lost arena revenues due to COVID-19, and also a Sturgeon County increase for recreation grant. So that's for the pool and for Pembina Place. Penalties and costs on taxes, $175,000. That's $75,000 over budget, which was just an optimistic that developers would pay their outstanding balances in 2021, which in all instances did not occur. So you're going to have some extra revenue there over budget. Rental revenue of $75K was about 30% under budget. This is primarily just due to COVID-19 and some of the closures during the year and reduced capacities and things like that. So that's primarily related to the rental of the arena. So overall, revenue $7.3 million, up over budget, and also increased over the prior year as well, primarily driven by that increase in gas. So we're just going to see it in a different way here, so you can kind of see the total revenue of the town and how it's broken out between the different areas. So, primarily, you're looking at property taxes making up the majority, probably about 35% or so of total revenue, and then it goes around the circle there, and you can see user fees and sales of gas, and then gas sales as well. So just another way to look at the total revenue of the town. And property taxes here. So property taxes, this is 2021 compared to 2020, so very consistent overall. There was only about a $1,000 change in total for the net municipal property taxes. So $3,041,000 compared to $3,040,000 last year. So this is showing your net municipal property taxes as well as the various requisitions that are there. So Alberta School Foundation Fund, the Homeland Housing Foundation, and your designated industrial property. All of them very consistent with prior year as expected, so no major swings there. Overall, one thing that's not shown here is linear taxes, down slightly from prior year, about $8,000, so overall very consistent from 2020 to 2021. I'm going to jump into the statement of operations. Again, you've got your budget, your 2021 actuals, and 2020 comparatives. This schedule here is shown by the different departments of the town as opposed to revenue that's shown by object. We will also see expenses by object in a slide or two here. So overall, we can see Parks and Recreation came in about 17% under budget. That's due to the pool season starting a bit later, as well as some repairs that were done that came in under budget and were delayed. Some decrease in staffing of the pool in Pembina Place due to the impact of COVID-19. And overall just cost cutting due to decreased operations in that area. Gas production is 12% over budget. This is again the offsetting increase to expenses from the increase in revenues as prices and volume did go up in 2021. Legislative 41% under budget, and that's just due to reduced travel and things for COVID-19 compared to the budget. So these comparisons are into budget. Economic development is 58% under budget due to the vacant salary position for the development officer, and then just overall less activity due to COVID-19 as well. Transportation, water, admin, wastewater, so the rest of those pieces there, all very consistent with budget, so no major swings in any of those that had anything that was major that we thought should be brought to the attention. So overall, the expense increase over the prior year is about $120,000. That's primarily related to just the increase of gas again, the cost there with various fluctuations in other departments.
Can I just mention something?
Yeah, definitely.
For the purposes of the financial statements, it's the original budget that goes in. If we want to explain that, when we did the interim and the first budget that's passed is what goes in. If you want to touch on that, just so.
Yes, we do have it. So under public sector accounting standards, we do have a requirement to present the first approved budget, whether that's an interim budget, it's still the first approved one for the year. So that is the budget that you're seeing in that budget column compared to a final budget that would maybe be adjusted a couple months later.
Financials would have the amended budget, so just in case you think, this looks a little different.
Yeah, it's
all your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
That question.
Yeah, that's just a CPA handbook requirement that's there for sure. So again, we're just gonna look at it through through a visual representation, and you can see the total expenses and you know, the proportions of where the money's being spent in the different areas for the town. And then we're also going to see here, so the expense number is the same, but we're looking at it by department on the previous slide, and then here we're looking at it by object. So materials, goods, and utilities, it's increased about 6.5% over budget, and that's just due to some increased water usage. There was a really hot summer this year, gas purchases, cold winter, so you know we've been swinging back and forth during 2021 between being really hot and really cold. No other real areas of significance. Salaries, wages, and benefits under budget about 14%. That's just due to some vacancies in positions during the year that were not filled, and then also an interim CAO position as well. Contract and general services under budget about 10%. That's just due to less travel related to COVID-19. No real other areas of significance in there. And the provision for allowance is in a recovery position. So you can see there's a negative, might be a little bit difficult to see, but the negative 78,585 there. That's just primarily related to a recovery from the PERC and DIRC grants that were received, and that's based on linear write-offs. As I touched on earlier, so this statement here is just our statement of operations. This is just other revenue and expenses. In this case, it's just revenue. So you will see that big dollar value there, $4.5 million. That's related to contributed assets. So that's on FACs issued in 2021 for the Redwater Landing and the Willows developments. So that's just assets that have been contributed to the town. So you pick them up as an asset, and there's a corresponding revenue related to that as well. And then the government transfers for capital is consistent with the budget. This is your MSI capital for storm sewer, Thorhill gas lines, the fire boiler replacement, and the most grant for council tech that would have been capitalized during the year. So very consistent with budget, and a little bit increased over last year, which is just based on capital projects moving forward and getting completed. Moving on to the consolidated statement of financial position. So we're going to look at the financial assets. Cash has decreased this year. That's primarily related to tangible capital asset additions of approximately $1.6 million higher than last year. Addition to increase of AR of about $700,000 with an offsetting increase in AP. In total, this pretty much basically accounts for your full variance in cash. You know, there is a cash flow statement in the financial statements that we won't touch on, but if you want to see kind of a deeper breakdown of cash and how it moves for operations and other items during the year, you can definitely look at that. That's in your full set of financial statements. No change in the investments this year. Property tax receivable, a slight decrease of about $14,000, so that's pretty consistent with the prior year, and that's, you know, as expected. Hopefully it's, you know, staying consistent. We like to see it come down a little bit, which it did slightly, so that's a good thing. Trade and other accounts receivable, it's up about $490,000 over last year. This is primarily related to utilities receivable, which increased by about $240,000 over the prior year. This is just that gas usage in December for the cold snap that we went through, which is increasing the receivable at year end. No major concerns with collection or anything like that. Most of it turned over in January. Overall, that kind of makes up the majority of your difference there. And then tax sale, no change in that either. So total financial assets, $5.8 million, down from the prior year, just primarily related to cash. We're just going to take a little bit of a deeper look here at property tax receivable. So you can see the two bars there. It shows you that the non-current taxes, so balances that are in arrears, is your top piece there, and then the blue box on the bottom is your current taxes. So that has been increasing, you know, over from 2019 to 2020 into 2021. That's primarily related to some, you know, linear properties, and as well as just the Alberta economy and, you know, people being a little bit slower to pay their taxes than anybody would like to see, that's for sure. So and then overall, the allowance for doubtful accounts as well. So balances that you know, management has determined that is potentially uncollectible has decreased from the prior year from $82,000 to $44,000. And you know, we're seeing that increase as well in the non-current taxes, which is the offsetting to the increase in revenue for penalties and taxes as well. That's where we see that increase over budget that we touched on earlier. So we're going to look at the liabilities of the town now. So still on the consolidated statement of financial position. Overall accounts payable up about $304,000. That's due to holdbacks on capital projects mostly, and the gas AP accrual for, again, increased December usage as well. Deposit liabilities down about 48,000. There was one of the developer was released during the year, went from about 40,000 to 6,000, so that makes up the majority of that difference. Deferred revenue down about 60,000 compared to 2020. That's mostly related to the recognition of the MOST grant in 2021. So that was about 97,000 sitting in deferred revenue last year. So that was all recognized, and it's offset by an increase of about 25,000 in arena and board advertising for people that paid early for future years for that type of advertising. So we do defer that revenue and recognize it over time based on how long they've paid for, if it's 3 or 5 years, just depending on the contract that was signed. Overall long-term debt is decreasing just based on the payments being made during the year. Just skip through. We're just going to take a quicker look here at the debt limits of the town. So overall, the maximum debt limit is based on 1.5 times the total revenue of the town. So that's based right there. So that's your total is 11 million right now. The number's kind of hard to see. 4.3 million is just an offset. That's exactly what's outstanding right now. That's the principal balance remaining on the debenture. So the town has the ability in 2021 to take out about 6.6 million more in debt based on the debt limits that are available to them. And then we'll look at the next slide here, which just talks about the debt service limit. So that's defined as about 25% of total revenue of the town. So overall, that's your bottom piece there is your service on debt. So that's actually your principal payment during the year. That's your payments that are required during each fiscal year. So you can see it hasn't moved from 2020 to 2021 as there's just the one debenture that's standing there. So overall, though, the town does have room to kind of increase that debt service limit if it's warranted, and there's projects that maybe a debenture makes sense for. The town definitely does have some room there to secure some more financing if required. And we're going to look at the consolidated statement of financial position. So those are your non-financial assets. So tangible capital assets, that's infrastructure, roads, buildings, vehicles, equipment that the town has as an asset. Overall, TCAs has increased significantly, about 6.4 million. That's due to the asset additions, and it's offset by amortization on those assets as well. Some of the major additions and projects that were undertaken in 21 include the Willows Road. So this increase here is going to include that $4.5 million contributed asset. So you've got the Willows Road, the Willows 1.31. You've got the Willows water line contributed asset about 760,000. Redwater Landing Sanitary and Sewer is about 365,000. The Willows Sanitary Sewer about 680. And then there's Storm Sewer Phase 3 was about 900,000 this year for that project. The Willow Storm Sewer contributed asset 1.4 million. Pembina Place, some upgrades to the ice plant and the HVAC, 1.9 million in 2021. And then the Thorhill Gas Line project was completed during 2021, so that's one that's carried over for a few years. And everyone's probably excited that was completed. That was about 218,000 to finish tying out those gas lines from Thorhill as well. And we'll just kind of look here as well. Just another way to look at basically your total cost and accumulated amortization, which results in your net book value of the varying classes of assets that the town does hold. So primarily, it's made up of, there's 29 million. That's primarily made up of engineered structures and buildings, which the buildings will be mostly Pembina Place.
Anything from council? Dwayne? You're okay so far, Dwayne?
Yep.
Okay. Nothing from council.
All right, so this Schedule 1 here is just a little bit of a deeper look at your unrestricted surplus, your restricted surplus, and then the equity and tangible capital assets, which is how much equity the town has tied up in its infrastructure and road projects during the year. So you can see there, we didn't quite touch on this yet, but the overall surplus for the year of the town was 5.7 million. That is primarily driven from that contributed asset, that 4.5 million, because you get an asset and you get a corresponding revenue. So that is the primary driver of that 5.7 will be that 4.5 there. And then just some changes here, and you can see in your unrestricted surplus line some ins and outs of funds that were used for, you have the purchase of capital assets. You also get, when you dispose of assets, it comes out of the equity as well. And then you've got your unrestricted funds designated for future use. So that 1.1 million is, the excess over top of, I believe, that 4.5 million, right? That was actual, operating surplus for the year. So that has been moved to restricted surplus for various future projects. So you can see the total accumulated surplus of the town is just over 30 million, and you have 25 million of that tied up in infrastructure and vehicles and equipment. Just another way to look at that here. I think maybe click back on that one so that works. There we go. Perfect. So you can see here just the components of accumulated surplus. So we can see on the left there that you've got, like I said, about just over 30 million of total accumulated surplus. You can see that kind of big chunk there, kind of looks like a Pac-Man figure. It's about 25 million, and then you can see that small little piece of pie there is made up primarily of your restricted capital assets of 3.1 million and unrestricted of 1.8. So that was nice and quick. We moved through it. That's all we have. For the presentation. We want to say thank you to everybody for appointing us as auditors and for management for all the help that they provide us during the audit. It makes it nice and easy on us having management that is very capable and doesn't mind answering our questions year over year. So we definitely appreciate that. And then we will also have the ability to go in camera as well if that's what council would like to do. Does Benji want to maybe see if you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, I do want to echo Tanner's comments. I mean, Town of Redwater is kind of a funny one because we do a number of municipal audits and everybody wants to be on this one because it's nice and clean and so it's kind of kudos to you guys that it's always a good one to work on for sure.
Anything from council? Tanner or Benji?
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Dwayne.
Just on the outstanding, you call it potential understatement of the allowance for doubtful accounts, the 37,000 there. How much of that is like, I guess you look over them and then you decide which ones are more at risk? Is there more of those? Like, how close are you? Where did you draw that line and say which ones were more at risk or doubtful, I guess is the word you guys use, doubtful?
Yeah, so when we're doing that assessment of the allowance for doubtful accounts, we're looking at tax rolls that, first off have arrears balances. If it's current, then typically, they're up to date. We're not overly concerned in that first year, as well as this primarily relates to linear properties where there isn't a whole lot of recourse to actually collect. There's the grants now that you can go back and get that school portion for, but overall there isn't a lot of recourse to collect. So if they do have arrears balances and they haven't paid in a number of years, even last year we kind of say, well, they haven't made a payment in a while, so it's potentially uncollectible. And management did assess some of the balances as actually adjusting and allowing for it. We're just saying here that I believe there was 2 more linear properties that we're saying potentially that the town isn't going to be able to collect it, and they very well might. So that was just a discussion with management to say, we can either adjust for it or we can take it aside. Being that it was only 37,000, the decision was made just to take it to our error worksheet and not adjust it for this year. And then that'll be something that management reassesses during the year and throughout, and for next year that maybe we actually should allow for that or potentially write it off as well. So
to follow on from that, I've reached out to the particular linear property a couple of times, trying to get them to the table to get some kind of agreement going. I haven't heard back from them yet. I wanted to try and do the similar thing like we did with Excel and Ohana. We've both stuck to their agreements. So I haven't had any response yet, but you don't actually have to write off the perk anymore, like the education, to be able to claim it through that grant program. So we wouldn't even have to write that off. I could claim that portion already, but I was hoping that their person would courteously get back to my emails, and I've spoken to a direct person, but somebody's trying to get us in touch, just to come to the table and try and figure out how we can. So that's why it wasn't in right now as a bad debt, because I wanted to work with them on that to try and get them onto a tax arrangement at this point.
Thank you.
That covers everything you needed there, Dwayne? Councillor
Yes.
Spicer? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So that response right there is the primary driver. We identify certain tax rolls, and then we have that discussion with management, and they tell us, yeah, I mean, we're trying to get in touch with somebody, we're trying to get payment, but, you know, they said, we think maybe we're gonna get it, but right now we're saying, well, based on what we've seen in the history, that potentially it's not gonna come through. And like I said, this is primarily related to linear. When you're looking at residential properties, there is the opportunity to potentially put it up for auction within 3 years following the MGA guidelines and those types of things. And usually you can recover in a tax sale scenario. So we wouldn't be allowing for any of those as long as, you know, the assessment value is, you know, well in excess of what the balance owing, and we didn't have any issues with any residential properties. It's primarily linear, and it's very, very consistent with every municipality that we deal with. Everyone has these problems with the linear properties, and it's a discussion that we have.
2 roles that we should have an issue with.
Yeah, and we see pretty consistent names popping up throughout the province as well. So we kind of see it in one and then kind of circle it through the other ones as well. That's kind of how it works. So.
It's unfortunate that if we don't collect that, it falls back on the residents to cover it because we budgeted for it, unfortunately.
Definitely, and when you're looking at like something like the school requisition, the towns, whether they get payment or not, they were still on the hook to remit that cash to ASFF, and now you're able to you know, apply for the PERC grant, and that was a change that they made that Diane alluded to, that you no longer have to write it off, you can still apply for it if it's in arrears. So that's a good change too.
Yeah.
Anything, Mr. Van Buell?
No, I have nothing.
I just have one quick question, Tanner. You mentioned at the very beginning you've been with us for 5 years, and I know a couple of times during that 5-year period there's been some changes with respect to how the audit is performed because of different changes in how it's done. My question is, we pretty much had the same parameters for all that time. Is there something else we need to focus on, or something coming down the pipe that we need to be aware of as to what might affect future audits?
Yeah, so, you know, we definitely do our assessment every year and make sure that we're identifying the risks that are prevalent in the town, and performing audit procedures that we believe are going to mitigate that risk, that outstanding. You know, something that is coming up is asset retirement obligations, every accountant's favorite topic, and maybe that's been brought up with council too, and some assessments I think that have been going on, and that's going to be a pretty big change, and that's a handbook section that's coming in that is going to require that, you know, municipalities, school boards, you know, anybody that's in that public sector, to be recording a liability related to that, for future asset retirement obligation in the future. So that could be anything from, you know, potential asbestos in the walls and other contaminants too. So it's a pretty large undertaking that, you know, a lot of our clients are going through right now, and that's going to come into effect for years beginning on or after April 1st, 2020. So that would be for next year.
And Tanner, there is also another one that's not really relevant for the municipality itself, but it's more changes in our audit requirements, and that's what we call CAS 315, Canadian Auditing Standards. And what that means is more work on our end to document systems, and specifically around IT, so your technology systems and the controls around those. So we're still in kind of the infancy of figuring out exactly what that's going to look like, so on our end, but it could mean a little bit more checklists and stuff for Diane to kind of go through with us, but nothing that you have to do internally.
You can have IT.
So that comes into effect for years ending December 31st, 2022. And in your agenda package, you will have that audit findings document. There is an attachment at the end that says planning for the audit. That is the details on that new standard that Benji just mentioned, CAS 315. So there's a little bit more information in there on how we might you need to prepare for next year's audit.
So just to add to that, specifically for our municipality, for ARO, is going to be primarily asbestos abatement. We've done the prelude reporting and stuff. Now we just have to get the pricing together for what the abatement's going to cost, and then we start booking our liabilities next year. So we'll see that flow through the budget process and everything next year, and we've started the groundwork. We just have to get the numbers put together for it now at this point.
Not seeing anything else, Tanner and Benji, thank you very much for again coming out and visiting our staff, because they always seem to be happy when you get here, so that's probably a good thing. But thank you again for the report and the presentation.
You're gonna hang around.
Yeah, I do have. Yeah, I do have.
Well, they have to pass some, which
Give you the motion, and
hang
I do
around.
have some signing, and then.
There's one thing to go before for a bylaw.
Sure. Let's go grab a chair.
Trade places with Planet.
Yeah.
So that concludes item number 5 on the agenda. So item number 6, adoption of minutes. We have 6.1 for the April 5th regular council meeting. Councilor Melnick,
I'll adopt the minutes.
motion on the floor to accept the minutes of the April 5th regular meeting of Town of Redwater. Call the question, all in favor?
In favor?
Thank you, Councillor Spicer. Item number 7, any business arising out of the minutes or any unfinished business?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Item 8, bylaws. We have Community Services Board bylaw 905. We're in your hands, Mr. Davison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So as you know, we're here to talk about the Community Services Board bylaw 815. In December 2013, the Community Services Board bylaw 815 was read and passed in order to establish an advisory board of the Community Services Department. With current administration and changes to both the organization structure and Community Services Department structure, it's been deemed necessary to revise the CS Board bylaw. At the time of its inception, bylaw 815 was well suited to the operations and administration of the Community Services Department. Current changes to practices and operations have provided the necessity to review and make appropriate changes to bylaw 815. From 2013 to 2022, we've seen numerous changes, both in the organization and in titles. And as a result, the current bylaw 815 is more suited to a summer village. I'm not sure if you've seen this before or you're aware of it, but generally speaking, in a summer village, you generally have a community services department that has maybe 1 or 2 people in it. They institute a board basically to oversee that. The board, generally speaking, has more power and more input in what they do there, mainly because the town or the village, hamlet, etc., doesn't have the resources or the people to actually carry out those duties. So you wind up with a board that has a reasonable amount of power, right? What we're proposing is just to bring it back in line with operations and with our current structure and with currently how we use the Community Services Board. So, strategic alignment, good governance, and community sustainability. I should have put in connected communities there, I apologize. And the cost of source of funding is the annual budget. And obviously the recommended action is move the council give first reading to bylaw 905, which changes from 815 to 905, Community Services Board bylaw.
Councillor Williams.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 905, Community Services Board.
Motion on the table. Any discussion with respect to it?
I just want to commend Garnet for the excellent job, or whoever was the individual involved, because there was a lot of cleanup in that bylaw. And I really respect the fact that you had them both in there, showing the comparisons in the two.
Yeah, we like to put a working copy in and a clean copy, and that way it just negates the questions. And not only does it negate the question, but if you're reading through the document, you get to see what exactly we changed and what we're looking at. So Yeah, let me know if I made any mistakes. Feel free to jump on me.
And why?
Yeah, that's right.
Anything else from council? Councillor Spicer?
You said that this is the way that the Community Service Board is operating, and they've seen themselves as operating this way as well, I assume?
No.
Does that answer your question?
I didn't hear it.
No, Dwayne, the board wasn't the one in control, that's for sure. It's been the other way around. Is that what you're asking?
They're the ones that were running things. Is that what I'm getting?
Not the
I heard
board.
there's distortion.
No, not the board, it was the department that was running it. We were more of the, what do you call it, think tankers?
Think tank is what I like to
Yeah.
use, yeah.
Yeah, but they saw themselves as that too, though, right? The think tank. No? No?
No, I think you answered his question in the reverse of how you asked it. But yeah, that's the way they're operating currently. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I see what he's saying.
I just had a couple of questions, and I was trying to find the one. Again, it's a curse, I think, in respect, when I get something like this, I have a habit of reading it through line by line and do a comparative analysis of it. And I had marked it, and I guess I didn't save my marking, but there was one of the sections was actually just a repeat of the section, and then the next section was identical to it. And I'm trying desperately to find it here quickly, but I can't. So that's just a cleanup thing. It's not.
Have a quick look at it. I didn't notice it, but I'll definitely take a look.
The other thing was in 3.5, you talk about the general manager attending at least quarterly for the meetings. And then in 7.9, you talk about the general manager being responsible for collecting the minutes of each meeting.
7.9. Or designate.
Or designate, I understand that. I just wondered if that was an intentional
No, it was just left as was.
as was? Okay, because if somebody's not coming to every meeting, they can't be held as the secretary. So I just wondered if that was something that was missed, but.
That's why we put the supervisor in as attending every meeting, so that would be my designate.
And are the supervisor, is that excluded from being chairman or?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And then non-voting as well.
Yeah, definitely. So somewhere in there, there's a duplicate, if you
I
can
will
find it and
endeavor
pull
to
it.
catch it.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept the change. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Councillor Butcher.
I'd like to make resolution number 2, Your Worship. Move that council give second reading to bylaw 905, Community Services Board.
Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Okay.
Next one.
Councillor Melnick.
All right, resolution number 3, I move that council unanimously agree to consider giving bylaw 905 third reading at this meeting.
Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's carried unanimously. Councillor Cosby.
I'll make the fourth resolution, move the council give third reading to bylaw 905, Community Services Board.
Any further discussion on the bylaw? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's carried. Thank you very much for putting the hard work into it, as mentioned by council. It's never easy to recreate something that's been created and is in play. There's always nuances to it, so good job. So that takes us out of agenda item number 8, new business. 9.1, acceptance of the 2021 audited financial statements. And we're in your hands, Madam President.
Thank you, Your Worship. So MMP have presented the financial statements. Again, want to commend Benji and Tana and the staff. We had 2 new team members this year. Every year they mix it up, so they always bring staff that are very professional and knowledgeable, even though they're new to this audit. So much appreciation to them. Also for the town staff, thank you to Ryan for getting everything organised with me. And considering we had such a big turnover in my department this year, and for us to have everything ready for the auditors, it was challenging, but we did it. So much appreciation to my team and to everyone that helped with the audit, and keeping us on track with our financials through the year. So they're here to be accepted, and once accepted, we actually have some copies that we can have signed so we can get them submitted within the MGA guidelines. So, any questions?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spicer. The motion on the floor is moved that the 2021 audited financial statement be accepted as presented and circulated. Any questions from council? Comments? Councillor Butcher?
No other than, once again, kudos to the staff and to our auditors. It seems like you've done a great job and you should be proud of yourselves.
Have a good team.
Anything, Councillor Spicer?
No, I'm good.
Not seeing anything else from the table, I'll call a question. All in favor?
In favor?
That's carried. And again, thank you very much. It's been said, but auditing is never a fun process in any way, shape, or form. So thank you for everybody for giving it your attention.
You like it?
Nothing.
You're okay to sign
The
them?
bills, eh?
We'll take a 2-minute recess while we sign some documents.
Did you want a motion?
Thanks, everyone. Sign off. Thanks.
Thanks, Benji.
Move on to the next ones.
I missed that, sorry.
Thanks, Benji.
He's leaving.
He's leaving.
Oh,
See you
okay.
later.
Benji,
Bye.
Good night, Benji.
did you want a motion for that?
No, we'll just make a 2-minute adjournment, and you need to sign.
Just need your signatures, Deputy.
Yeah, he was mentioning that. Yeah. Had it all scheduled, and then Calmar, Monday's a holiday.
Yeah, he's not.
He didn't seem very happy when I was talking to him.
He wasn't.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
That's-
Quit reading off.
Anna, who's this one where it says officer?
And we'll move on to our next order of business, which is item 9.2, Redwater and District Chamber of Commerce appointment. And we are in your hands, Ms. Lane. Assuming she's presenting.
I assume she is too, but I could.
She was on.
She was there.
She is here.
There she is.
There you are.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you?
Oh, you know, I've been better. Just slowing down a little bit now. So here we are with our, the Redwater and District Chamber of Commerce had held their annual general meeting on Wednesday, March 30th. The town of Redwater typically has voting rights, or historically had voting rights, and so we are looking to take that away from them this year. However, we are looking to appoint a member of council, Councillor Joanne Williamson, but to still have economic development at the table for their general meetings, but without the voting part on my behalf. So administration will continue to foster the town's relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, seeing the value it adds up to the region, but due to the voting rights, it would be appropriate that an elected official represent the town of Redwater at the Chamber of Commerce meetings. The strategic alignment is pretty status quo. Typical, we embrace connected communities by welcoming partnerships. We're going to continue to pursue a healthy economy by focusing on our potential in tourism, local business promotion, and governance partnerships with businesses. And good governance, we actively pursue and embrace good governance and integrity by being accountable, responsible, transparent, focusing on the overall good of the community. There are no additional costs and sources of funding. Recommended action is to move that Councillor Joanne Williams be appointed to the Redwater District Chamber of Commerce and Mayor Dave McCrae as appointed as the alternate.
Councillor Melnick.
I move that Councillor Joanne Williams be appointed to the Redwater and District Chambers of Commerce and Mayor Dave McCrae be appointed as the alternate.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. Section 10, notice of motions. 10.1, policy 122.14, council remuneration update. Councilor Wilson.
I'll make the motion that council direct administration to bring back a report discussing, or for discussion on the April 26, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting on a review and update of policy 122.14, council remuneration. This report should include updates to include training via internet, Zoom and team meetings, discussion with council to clarify what is and is not chargeable under this policy and the rationale behind those decisions, and to add a paragraph with regards to annual attendance to the FCM conference as defined, and to define the number of councillors and the members of administration who are allowed to attend. Add a few different scenarios in with regards to that, i.e. just 2 councillors and the CAO. And if the CAO doesn't want to attend, then another member of council may replace them.
Right. Discussion. Councilor Butcher.
This has come up numerous times, and I thank Councillor also for bringing it up again, because it's a discussion we have to keep on the table. With the new way that we're attending meetings, i.e. Zoom, etc., and a lot of timing is not good. I think it's something that we should do on an annual basis so that everybody understands it and knows what we can charge for and what we can't charge for. And that's about all I have to say. It's always been one of those things that we have to review. And I think a review and recommendations from administration would be greatly appreciated.
Any other discussion? Councillor Spicer?
Yeah, I just want to say that the 3-4 years I've been on here, there just needs to be some clarification around these things, because as happened the last couple of years, things have changed, and I still can't quite follow all the rules yet, and have to keep asking over and over. It'd be just nice to get some clarification and some changes that are needed as well. Thank you.
Councillor Williams?
I think this would be great because, especially when there's no consistency, like one time you're allowed to charge it and another time you can't. It just depends on perception, right? So if we could all be on the same page, that would be fantastic. And it's not because of administration, it's because of us, and it depends who's running the show.
I have a question through to Councillor Olson. Wondering if perhaps there would be a light amendment to it rather than asking administration to come direct to us with the information. Whether or not this might not be something that could be looked at by the Corporate Service Policy Committee. How he feels about that. That would give an interface between administration and council to actually work through it, as opposed to just being directed by administration to council. That would be, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Councillor Cosby, Councillor Melnick, and yourself would be that committee.
Personally, Your Worship, I just want this to be an open discussion on the, on a CAL meeting, and then have administration sort of gather our feelings. And then, like, the way I foreseen this was just an open discussion at the CAL. We would say, I don't know, bring up the fact that Uni 101 or whatever is a training course, you should get paid for it. Administration come back and say yes or no, and give us the rationales behind that decision. And then at the end of the night, the administration would have the notes and come back next meeting and say, all right, here's what our new remuneration policy is. This is what you can charge for. This is what you can't charge for, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And that's all I was looking for, is like an open discussion.
Okay.
And we're like tonight, where it's too much of a formal situation, where we could have a decision, not a council meeting, but on a committee of a whole. It's just an open discussion around that subject.
And the purpose of my question was just that we have the committees, but we don't seem to use them a lot. Yeah. And that was why I was wondering if it would fit into that. But
that's one more. To me, that's one more step. Prolong it. I think to alleviate the committee in this situation, I think is good, because I want to hear from, have all 7 of us in the discussion. Instead of 3 of us discussing it, coming back to have 7, to go back to 3, back to 7, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So get her done. Hopefully, if we have to spend an extra 20 minutes, 26 to, than we normally do. When we walk out of here, we should have everything hammered out and welded together, and wait for Diane to put pretty paint on it and bring it back to us. Or Miranda or somebody.
Any other discussion? Yes, administration.
Let me just make a comment for Mayor and Council. I think the clarification that I got today kind of helps me out, because when I first saw this, first thing that popped into my head was a review of our remuneration, not just the policy, but the manner in which council's remunerated. I'll be honest with you, I had a whole bunch of red flags that went up the flagpole doing that, at this point in time of the term. So this will help us maybe narrow down the discussion for council and talk more about, I could use this term, blame it on COVID kind of thing, where we're in a different world as to how we go to meetings. So if we can add some clarification around that and we can keep it that simple, it'll probably help that discussion narrow it down fairly quickly.
Yeah, and just to throw a little more fuel on that fire, towards the end of our last term on council prior to this last election, there were actually changes in the Municipal Government Act as what required council to achieve after being sworn in. They only had certain timelines and what have you that required them to take certain courses. So that's another reason to look at it and everything else. So, yeah, no. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor?
In favor?
Carried. Now we go down to strategic plan survey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make the motion and direct administration to bring back a group of questions for discussion at the April 26, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting on a possible electronic survey for staff and residents of the town of Redwater. These questions will be put together, obviously, with the assistance of or by our consultant with regards to the strategic planning and administration, and it should give administration a sufficient time to administer the surveys, collate answers and everything prior to our planning session at the end of May.
Motion on the floor, discussion. Go ahead.
Somebody had mentioned it about going out, and I mean, not only to the town or to the residents, but also to the staff. I mean, our management team are there with us at the table of strategic plan, but our laborers and frontline workers aren't there. And to hear their thoughts on what they should see every day and have their ideas going towards a strategic plan, of course, and then of course our residents. You know, sort of, if they can give us their 2 cents worth where they'd like to see the town's future headed towards, it gives us some ideas and ammo when we're going to be sitting down there for the 2 days hammering this strategic plan out. So,
Councillor Butcher.
And I think one thing that I had a discussion this afternoon, and one of the things with the survey is get them out before we actually start doing our strategic plan. You know, this way, if the community says 56% like this, then we can look at really adapting that to become something not 4 or 5 years from now, but in the near future.
Councillor Spicer.
I would just echo what Rob said. It's great to have contact with our residents and have them give us some feedback, and we can't go wrong with that. And I believe we'd be doing, Tim's doing our strategic plan, and he would come up with a group of great questions to be asking that would help him to help us.
Go ahead, Councillor Cosby.
I do agree as well. Like, I think we need to do a lot more public engaging with our residents out there. Because, I mean, by all means, we're here for them, and we need to hear them. So I think not only this, but I think we need to look at other ways to engage our public.
Councillor Williams.
I just want to add to that, because we all know when we go out in the public, we all get, have those conversations with our public, but nothing ever gets on paper and to push it forward. So it's not just an individual thing, it's something that we can do collectively. If we all hear the same stuff, we need to start bringing it forward. And you get a lot of that too, Garnet, so.
One of the other things that I think is important when you're looking at the strategic plan survey is that we have created a few surveys in the past that have given us some benchmarks. So there's an opportunity for us to see if there's been a change in the dynamic of our community as well, based on some of the other questions we might have gotten at some other time that may apply to it. And we're also seeing a greater importance being put on our strategic plan from administration, especially this year past when we all of a sudden realized that our budget and our strategic plan have a strong coordination with each other. So, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with engaging the public and talking. So, administration, go ahead, Mr. Van Buren.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if there's any specific topics you want us to hit, just give us an email so that we can include them in what we bring forward for that discussion on the 26th. If there's any areas or near and dear to your heart, give us a quick email. We like to read minds, but we're really not very good at it. So let us know what you want to see included in there. We'll do our best to work with him and come up with, and we want to make sure that this is, I guess, we don't want to keep people doing it for an hour. Like, this needs to be a quick
Short and sweet.
dozen, maybe a baker's dozen questions, right? So we want to make them broad enough that we get a general idea what people are thinking. We don't want to create a wish list of projects. That's not what we're trying to do, right? In our strategic plan, we're trying to say, what do we want this to look like? What do you want your community to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What do you want it to look like, smell like, talk like, walk like? And then we can start to, as we go through our budget and our budget process every year, we can build on that to put together, what's next.
I think one of the tools that we have is our last survey that went out had a reference to costs.
Yep.
If X is going to cost you this much dollars, do you want it? Do you not want it? What scale of wanting it do you want if that's the cost of it? Which was important too, so perfect. Anything else from council?
I just have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you want something more specific about what we've been hearing in the community? Okay.
What are we missing? What are we not hitting the mark on? What do we need to do more of? What do we need to do less of? Right, those kinds of things. And I think the less part, if I can, Councillor Butcher, I'll paraphrase some of the discussion that we had this afternoon. Sometimes when you're creating a vision, it's not just about what you want it to be. You also have to talk about what you don't want it to be. Right? Because that's a big part of the equation. And that's what adds a little bit more definition and gets people out of, well, I think it's like this. Well, no, say it's this, but not this. And you start to define it a little bit more each time.
So motion on the table, not hearing any further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's carried. Item 10.3, town uses procedure development.
Your Worship, this one I'm gonna go two-part, administration or corporate services. Policy committee to develop a procedure for the use of the town car that establishes prioritization, scheduling, the expectations with regards to how the vehicle is to be left once the member of staff or council is finished with it.
Go ahead, Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just foresee now that we're using it a lot more, and I mean, it was originally designated as Noaza's vehicle, and other staff could use it, I mean, and everything. But now that Trina's on board and she's gonna be using it, and council is using it, and other staff members are using it, I just thought we should get it in policy, so there's no conflict, coming in. I'm the counselor, I'm taking it type thing, it's like, just so it's on paper, it's black and white, sort of where the priorities lead or are scheduling, it's another calendar, right? We only got a dozen or so.
We have a calendar for it.
Oh, do you? So, okay, so there's one thing you don't have to develop. So it just, just to sort of clarify things up.
Further discussion? Go ahead,
I
Councilor.
just want to ask administration, so have you had any issues with conflicts of?
You have to ask Nawaz.
Oh, I just thought you had a schedule.
There's a calendar that people can phone up and ask somebody to, they normally phone you, right? They don't go through corporate services at all. So I'm not sure if that's.
I know in 2 years ago when we purchased this vehicle, the SUV, the intent was that we can take them to the conferences or the big board meetings so that we can have a marketing for the town, the free marketing. And we created a calendar. So we do have a shared calendar that if anybody wanna take. And I know in last 2 years, especially with COVID, nobody was taking this vehicle. So it haven't been used except maybe 1 or 2 times. So if a council or any other staff member is wanna use, yeah, there is a calendar and we can develop some procedure and yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Spicer, anything?
Nothing for me.
Procedure probably should include how to turn the lights on the car. Not saying who that might have been.
I know nothing about it.
Mr. Van
Mayor,
Meel.
if I could suggest, and appreciate Councillor Olson saying, maybe this one, I think administration can take a quick stab at it. I don't think we need to, as a former supervisor of mine said, I don't think we need to pull vote over most skirts on this one. I think it's simple. We can create a priority list, and for me, quite frankly, it's not personnel based. It's use based. Like, where does it go? And I think we can come up with that priority use right in front of council, and then we can say yay or nay really fast. I don't see this one as a big.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be a policy or if it should be a procedure. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
We'll bring you back something that I
Yeah.
think we can say yes to in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Sure.
I know, in the old days, when I
Motion on the floor then to have administration deal with this. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. All right. And thanks, Councillor Olson, for bringing those information matters forward, because they are important. You heard from Councillor Butcher that it's not something we should lose sight of, and it's good to have that input. There is procedure in our organizational bylaw that if any member of council has an issue that they want brought forward, all you have to do is talk to administration, bring it forward, and we can get it looked at. So that opportunity exists for anything that you might want to talk about. Good. Item 11, council reports. We'll start off. Councillor Olson, anything to add to your report?
I just want to elaborate on, what is it? Oh, the Federation of Gas Co-op Zone meeting with the discussion I had with Thorhild County Reeve, Joyce Price, with regards to co-sponsoring a Ready to Rock. It's a curling thing that the Federation sponsors. So I'm basically in the infancy of the discussions. I have to talk to the curling club, obviously, to see if they're interested, because it's going to be their ice. And if they're interested, then I'll keep in touch with County Reeve there, and we can get this thing rolling. It's a fun day. It's as I mentioned in the report, it's where they bring out Olympic medalists, Canadian championship curlers, and that. And it's designed around teaching or getting kids who have never curled out to curl for a little bit, just to show them the basics and that. And it's a full day event, and usually, for the town and for the county to sponsor, it's usually like a lunch, because they pay for Alberta Curling and the Federation pay for everything. They help with advertising and everything else as far as going out to the schools and community groups and all that. So it's really good. And Joyce and I talked about it there. And before I bring anything formal to council, obviously I have to talk to Curling Club to see if they're going to be interested. And other than that, but I'm pretty sure they would be. But we'll wait and see.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cosby?
I just wanted to highlight at our library board meeting, they're doing their strategic plan as well, and there is a survey that has gone out and been circulated, and I hope everybody here has done that survey and had it submitted. And also too, they're having a tea tomorrow. I believe it's at the library for longstanding community member Diane Natamichuk, between 2 and 4, I believe.
I'm just going to add to that they better stop having those teas, because every time they schedule one, the weather turns absolutely ugly. So I don't know why Diane is mad at us and creates bad weather, but for those of you on council, Diane has been a long-standing resident. My children were taught by her at Oak Park School years ago too, so.
I was as well.
Yeah, so. Anything, Councillor Spicer, for your report? Any additions?
I just wanted to add that I was at the Asia conference this last week. It's the Alberta Seniors Housing. They lobby our provincial government on the behalf of seniors housing. And just to let you know, the government has kind of backed off their competency board. They're just kind of changing the name, though, to skills-based board. It's a little better sounding. But they are moving forward with it, but they have listened to a certain amount, and it'll be interesting where that's going to go. The other thing is the heads up to us as communities. They're moving towards releasing their assets, that they want to turn them over, that they no longer be in the housing business. They want to be in the regulation and funding. The regulation, I know they're good at. Funding might be interesting. So we'll see where that goes in the next year here.
Okay.
That's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. Councillor Butcher, anything to add to your report?
Just as presented, Your Worship.
I'm sorry?
Just as presented.
As presented, super, thank you. Councillor Melnick?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Councillor Williams?
Nothing to add.
And my report stands as presented, so thank you, councillors, for submitting those. I know Miranda looks forward to getting them and getting them in the agenda, so that's an important step. Thank you. Item number 12, correspondence and information items. CNN annual vegetation control on their right-of-ways. Just through to Public Works, have you seen the correspondence from CN?
Yes, Your Worship, yeah.
Anything from council on this? Just wondering if maybe in your communication with them, if it just seems like when they're running alongside of the track and mowing there and what have you, they leave the last foot of vegetation, and it's about 3 feet tall and everything else is 5 or 6 inches tall, and it just looks like heck running through town right alongside the edge of the tracks. So if they can do something to look after that a little better, that would make it a lot better visually. I know Councillor Butcher can look out her front window and see it blowing in.
And I can count to 13,712 gophers. That's what I see, Ken.
And they've provided a fact sheet with this as well.
Oh, that's funny.
So it would be that right-of-way section that they need to tidy up right up to the edge of the tracks. I'm guessing, and this is only a guess, they're afraid of catching some of that rock with their mowers. So they'll have to pull the mower up considerably higher than what they would do the rest of the area with. But if they can make it look a little better through town, that would be great.
Sure, I will send out the email and contact them.
Great.
To raise our concern, yes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams?
I just wanted to add, if you could also let them know that on this report, that they put what they're actually spraying and what it is, that it's friendly to the pets, because I've been asked that question, so now I don't have to ask it. I want to know, so.
Friendly to pets, but not so friendly to gophers, maybe?
That would help.
We don't care about the gophers.
They're not our pets.
Redwater Legion Branch 251, correspondence. I'll just tidy this up a little bit. I had an opportunity last week before. I got a phone call asking if I could meet at the Legion was having a meeting. They were in some difficulty with respect to membership. They were looking to try and fill an executive. Maybe Councillor Olson can help me out on this. If they cannot fill an executive or several of the executive positions, then command takes away their charter and therefore they fold. So they were in a difficult situation. They are a long-standing member of the community. They've done wonderful charitable work within the community, have spent, I'm sure, well over hundreds of thousands of dollars to other not-for-profits. And it just seems that they're kind of getting left behind. They did have a very good meeting as far as fulfilling an executive for the charter purposes. But once again, it's everybody stood up, moved one chair to the left, the last person on the far left moved all the way to the far right, and everybody sat back down again. So it's the same people running the same organization, trying to make it change, trying to make it different. And they are looking at some ways of bringing some youth in, maybe some different components to their programs. Maybe cribbage and darts and pool aren't as enticing to a 20-year-old as maybe something else might be. So they're looking at some of those things. And one of the things that I think that they came away from the meeting that I think might be very positive is they're also looking at access to the building by members, so that it's not just one or two people with a key. It would be an electronic process. So if a member decided at 7 o'clock at night they wanted to go and shoot a game of pool, they would have access without phoning somebody to come and open the door for them and close it 2 hours later. So that's some of the things they're looking at. If anybody is aware of anyone who could be a member or would appreciate being a member, the restrictions are fairly open. It used to be you had to be a veteran, but that has changed many, many years ago. So if you can support the local Legion with membership, they would appreciate it for sure. Go ahead, Councillor Williams.
I just want to add to that. I had talked to somebody as well, and they had stated that after this meeting, you're talking about the AGM? Yeah, they're going to kind of try and do a membership drive because it's the membership that is really down. They did have the executive, so there was no issue there. It's just a matter of getting membership because they need to bring the membership up.
Yeah.
They did have their executive.
Yeah, they filled the positions they needed. So.
Well, from my understanding, they always had the executive. It's just a matter of, maybe I misunderstood her.
No.
But the membership is what they're requiring, and a lot of people don't understand that the requirements are not what they used to be.
Exactly.
Everybody was sharing this letter, and people were like, thinking it's the town's fault, and I said, it's not the town's fault, they need membership, but now they changed the membership that anybody can join. So they said once this AGM was done, then we could start, we're gonna start some kind of campaign that we can start sharing or whatever, so.
I wonder if we could throw like a bug in at the community service board, like to the young ones we have there, to maybe bring it back to the school and say, hey, what would you like to see, done at the Legion? What would you guys come for at the Legion? And maybe we can get some ideas from our.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
We have a couple youth on there, and maybe it's a good idea to see what they'd like.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think somebody was gonna contact you.
What,
I don't know if she obviously hasn't yet, but the meeting was just last week, wasn't it?
The Legion's meeting?
AGM,
Yeah, it'd be 9 days ago or 10 days ago. I could look at my calendar.
No, that's okay.
And tell you, but
That's okay, I just can't remember what it was.
we also have communication from the National Accessibility, I guess it's actually technically from Barrier Free Alberta, and it's about the National Accessibility Week. And they're looking for me to sign on to a support form as an elected official. One of the things that I think is important for council to recall is that over a 5 or a 6-year period, Public Works has made sure that part of their budget each year went to ensuring our curbs were cut at the intersections, so that there's an accessibility option at, I think, every intersection is now done. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship, all the ramps on the intersection, the sidewalk ramps, all are accessible for the handicapped, yes.
So that is, I guess, part and parcel of their National Accessibility Week. That's May 29th to June 4th. And then we had communication from TELUS advising us we are about to lose, if not have lost, our last payphone in town. The one in front of IGA is being taken down. And I read in the newspaper or the news the other day, I think Olds, same thing in Olds, they were losing their payphone and stuff like that. And yeah, you have to understand, I guess, that in some respects the payphones only ever came because of the quarters that we put in them to phone home to get a ride or whatever, and we don't do that anymore. But TELUS has sent us a communication with respect to retirement of our payphones in town.
We automatically get a donation?
What's that?
We automatically get a donation?
Yeah, sure. I don't think they'll automatically give us a donation, but we might be able to talk them into something.
Oh, that's what I read here, that's what I was hoping.
Donation to Future Foundation.
Yeah, it's to their fund.
foundation.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying we can probably maybe talk to them about some funding.
Yeah.
You never know. Tell them we cried at council and lost our payphone. See if
Start
that-
crying here on camera.
You're gonna use the money for else, something else.
Yeah.
Councillor Butcher?
Would the museum be interested in possibly picking that up for one of their artifacts?
It's a possibility. We could certainly get in touch with
Because they are offering it.
Brian Bettis
Yeah.
and see where they were actually offering it. Oh, yeah, keep it, yeah.
The organization would like to keep the decommissioned payphone.
Yeah. That's certainly an opportunity I can,
Put it in the caboose. It's decommissioned too.
I'll see what they would like. I can touch base with them easily enough. Yes?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if we could just go back to the National Accessibility Week.
Yep.
Is council interested in getting the 30-minute presentation, or are we going to write them a letter and say thanks, but what's council's wish?
Council? Dwayne? Go ahead, Councillor Butcher.
Oh, go ahead, Dwayne.
Well, I hadn't said anything, but I'd be in favor of it. It wouldn't hurt. We need to, like, inclusivity in our community is important, especially we're seeing more and more seniors getting around and things like that. It wouldn't hurt.
I agree with Councilor Spicer, because there's new technology out there as well, so there might be something we could possibly pick up on that will help our community.
Same lines.
Do either one of you want to make that a motion?
I'll make
I
the
will.
You can't arm wrestle, all right.
Nikolai.
So we'll go with Councillor Spicer, made the motion that we arrange for the 30-minute presentation. Any further discussion?
There is a bit of a sign on to your support form too. Do we want to do that as part of that?
You already said you.
I can easily do that if council so directs. That's not a problem. So that's part of your motion, Councillor Spicer?
Yes.
That we follow both of the options outlined in the letter?
Yeah.
Further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Yes, Councillor Butcher?
Your worship, motion to accept reports and correspondence as information, please.
Thank you. Appreciate you collectivifying both those sections. Thank you. Motion on the floor to accept correspondence and reports. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Item 13, 13.1 Act Date. Councillor Olson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make the motion that we take a 5-minute recess and then go in camera. Sorry, closed session.
Closed session. Motion on the floor at 8 o'clock to go a short break and then go into closed session. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried.
I got lots of